by now, we really the only way for me, the best way to like learn about zoning is actually to do it and study the existing zoning in your area. So you can see a zoning guide, or basically the list of zoning requirements, definitions in the CLUP guidebook. This is published by the Housing and Land Use Regulatory Board, the HLURB. And you can download this on their official website. I can give you a link if you want. So what are the goals? Again, optimize use of land, promotion of public health and safety, preservation of desirable character and real estate values, and promotion of rational and orderly growth of the city and municipality. So it kind of fits with our goals in urban planning, urban and regional planning that we defined at the start of the SEM. So you have a sample zoning map here and the different colors. So what are the different types of zones? I just listed them down here. My reason for listing this down is just so you guys are aware that these exist. So it's there's the forest zones. So there are different sub-zones within the forest zone, agricultural zones, and the different like protected zones under there. Oh, I forgot to highlight the agri-industrial zone and municipal water zone. So I'll just like include that as well. Let me just put a color on that. Bold, and put it under like, let's say, I'll keep it green because everything is already green. So these are the agricultural zones. The mineral land zone, so like for quarrying and what they call this, for looking for metal, I guess. You have mineral reservation subzone, quarry subzone, small scale mining zone. And then our residential zones. In the Philippines, the residential zones are colored yellow. So there's a general residential zone, R1, R2. So you guys are familiar with this. I seem to have copied the same numbers again over here. So let me just remove that. There we go. So R3, R4, and R5. I think these are, I think the most we see is R1 and R2, not so much the 4 and 5 in our zoning maps, at least for, in my experience anyway, in Cebu City. And then the socialized housing zone. And then next. So there are over 26 zones. So after the residential zones, you have the commercial zones in red. There's 1, 2, 3 industrial zones in purple. That's 1, 2, 3 in the institutional zones. That's just mostly blue. There's 2 of them, general and special. Parks and recreation zone. I just left it as like gray because sometimes it's gray, sometimes it's green. I don't know. It depends on the. I don't. It should be all uniform. Parks and open space should be. Let's see, parks and open space. It's like a different shade of green. Cemetery and memorial park zone. This is another issue. Like I clearly remember there was one thesis about a multi-story cemetery just to address the importance of managing land. So that was a very interesting thesis. Not, I was still a student at that time, but I didn't sit in through the whole presentation, but it was very interesting. So buffer, greenbelt zone, utilities, transportation, and services zone, and then a tourism zone. Okay. So what are these are the different types. There are 26 zoning types. The objective is to optimize land use, and the processes are at the kanang are handled at the city and municipal level. So each city or municipality will have their own like committee, and you can read that, you can see this process in volume 1 of the CLUP guidebook. So there are several volumes. So I think there is 4. Did I include the image here? Okay, forgot to include the image. So I'll just include it over here. I'll just show you on the screen. I think it's this one. Okay, here we go. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guidebooks for comprehensive land use planning. Volume 1 handles the planning processes. Volume 2 is the sectoral analysis and tools for situational analysis. So this is how you do analysis. We won't go into that. I think you can use this for thesis. And this, I usually reserve this for like postgraduate because it really gets complicated. Model zoning ordinance. So this is where we get the zoning colors, how to make the, how to classify the different zones in the city. And then over here, supplemental guideline on mainstreaming, CCA/DRR in the CLUP. So this is like land use and like from ridge to, I forgot what the term was it. Let me present here. It's over here. What they call Ridge to Reef Integrated Watershed Ecosystems Management Framework. So, what kind of framework or plan handles the forest management? What kind of plan handles the ancestral domain, integrated ecosystem, agrarian reform, agriculture and fisheries modernization plan, infrastructure planning, coastal fisheries, and comprehensive development plans? So, there are so many kinds of plants, which I think is good in its own way, but it really goes down to who is like managing these plants. Um, just for an area like this, you have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Yeah, let's say seven government agencies: the HLURB, the DENR, the DA, the Department of Agrarian Reform, that's DAR. I don't know what DA is, Department of something, NCIP, and the DILG. So there's so many government institutions. So looking at the sort of jurisdiction of a comprehensive land use plan, that includes everything from forest, upland, lowland, and coastal marine areas. I don't know. There's an HLURB comprehensive land use plan, and also there's a DILG comprehensive land use plan. For some reason, two different agencies are making their own CLUPs, so you can already tell how messy this is getting. um, Focusing on like forestry and like the management of our like natural forests. You have the forest land use plan, which will be prepared by the DNR Department of. Uh, I really need to know this department. I just DNR Department of Environmental and Natural Resources, and then DILG is the Department of Interior and Local Government. Okay. So yeah, so several plans, and the comprehensive land use plan is supposed to be the combining all of these plans to create what local government and like the citizens need to do to maintain and like create sustainable communities. And then over here is the steps in creating a comprehensive land use plan. So number one is identify the need. Number two is access available resources and prepare the proposal. So this is basically strategies to undertake planning, CLUP proposal, SB and SP resolution approving proposal. This is, I think we use too many acronyms, but based on my experience in Sydney, they also use their own acronyms. But because I had to learn their acronyms. In the first place, I never really learned the acronyms in Cebu anyway. So this is something that I need to improve on. But this should give you a starting point if you want to figure out what are the steps in making a comprehensive land use plan. Organizing the planning team. So who is included in that planning team, orient the team, and then inventory available information and prepare and disseminate the material. So over here is a work program for a CLUP or zoning ordinance formulation or revision. They said in this document that the whole CLUP would take about 18 months to prepare. So that's a little bit over a year. So a year and a half. Yeah, a year and a half. So getting the approval of the SB and SP, I think I still don't know what that is. Preparation of the work program. So that takes about 2 months. Identifying stakeholders, about 2 months. Analyzing the situation, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. That activity includes sectoral studies, base map preparations, data gathering and survey, mapping of the results, consultation workshops, needs issues and analysis projection, cross-sectoral analysis, etc., etc. And then setting the goals. This will need another workshop. Establishing development thrust and spatial strategies. That would take. That's also another workshop, probably taking about 3 months. And then that whole preparation cycle would take about a year at 11 months. And then the preparation of the land use plan will take another 3 months. And conducting a public hearing and refinement of the CLUP happens in the last 3 months of the sort of work program cycle. So ideally, this is what's happening with our local government, like cities and municipalities. But as I mentioned before, Cebu City still doesn't have a CLUP or a zoning plan that's been updated. That we're still using the same one from the 2000s, or maybe for yeah, or maybe even earlier. Um, so that's really a problem with Cebu City right now. So this is I don't know how we're going to do that. We need to organize a local committee for that, but there's no funding for it for some reason. So you can't really have people work for free, and especially with the pandemic. So now it's like um, very difficult to create a CLUP for Cebu City. But if you're from like the municipality or city like Bohol, um, I think Mandawi also has their CLUP. Lapu-Lapu has their CLUP. I think I know one of our students from Liluan showed like a very complete set of land use plans. So this is just a slide identifying who's inside or who is part of that planning team. So you have the Metropolitan Committee, like this is Development Committee. I'm pretty sure the D is Development and C is Committee. The Planning Officer, Architectural, Environmental, Urban Planner, or Mechanical Engineer. I guess they can have a mechanical engineer over there. Um, hmm, yeah, I think so. I think that makes sense. DRRMO or CCA specialist. I think this would be more of the social side of it. CM and NRO. So we need to look up those what do you call this acronyms. So I'll need to research that and put it into our modules. The support group will be encoders, writers, draftsmen, staff researcher, representative on housing, dep eds, MHO, I don't know what those are, MSWDO, I think that's water supply, PNP, JMBA, and as needed, legal experts and real estate developers. So just look at this list. You need one, two, three, four. You'll need probably like more than at least like five draftsmen, writers and coders. So that's a different skill. So that's easily like 10 people in this group, another 10 people here, and legal expert, probably you only need like one or two. Real estate developers, consultants, probably you need like one and two. So that's like 5, 10, 10, 20, 25, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Probably like easily over 30 people. That's the planning core group. And they need to be like paid properly in order to make these plans. Like at least if it's like lower than competitive rate, at least something that will help them like feed them for their work. And TWG, I'm not sure what this is, like so something group, TWG group. So you have like uh, from the social side, communities, group representatives, concerned NGAs, president of Liga ng Barangay, senior citizens, SP and SB. I think that's Sanggunian Bayan or something. Committee chair, sector, community rep, and GAD concerned local heads. In the economic side, tourism officers, MAO, MARO, TESDA, DOST, Department of Tourism, NGO, non-government offices. Infrastructure, you have the local water utilities representative. So remember we mentioned earlier this semester, we need to identify where is our water coming from, who is our supplier. So we have Electrical Corps, PPC representative, Telecom, DOTC. So that's a lot of people. Physical, looking at the academe. So that's us, assessor, CSC, CS, A and D. I don't know what those are. Real estate developers and PPDO reps. So several like private sector groups. Forest and ancestral domain. So this will be another local community representative, coastal and marine representatives, CCADRR. What the heck is a CCADRR? So I need to look that up. Heritage and then urbanism. I don't know what GG urbanism is. So there's so many acronyms. Okay, so that's basically like a quick snapshot of how these comprehensive land use plans are made. And I think easily you can have in the core group 30 people, and in the support, the what do you call this? That's a planning core and support group, about 30 people, and this other like external group, easily another 30 people. So you can have like 60 people working together to create this map. So that's about the size of a large classroom. and they all need to be experts in different fields. They all need to be communicating together. And then if your municipality or city has a land use plan, I hope now you can appreciate the effort that makes that goes into making those plans. And then I just want to highlight for those who live in Cebu City and Cebu Province that there is a plan to sort of combine all the strengths of the different municipalities or the largest municipalities and cities in Cebu province, and that is the roadmap study for Metro Cebu. So again, we mentioned this last week. There, it's a what do you call this cooperation of the biggest municipalities and cities in Cebu province to help solve our like different problems. So there's the website there, and then if you want to look at the official document, it's over here. It really gets complicated. So I usually save this for the postgraduate program. And then for the undergraduates in this class, we just need to be aware that it exists. And then we can discuss like in broad terms, the ideas that are being tackled in this report. And then as I mentioned before, Cebu City specifically hasn't updated its like land use plan since the late 90s and the 2000s. Over here is the MACLUT's plan, the Metro Cebu Land Use and Transportation Study, so MACLUT's. And what are you can see over here the pattern of a multiple nuclei development. So the large circles are urban cores and the smaller circles are sort of urban satellites. And in black are, I think, special developments. You see here SRP, you see the industrial areas next to the heritage areas of Cebu. You see the industrial areas in Lapu-Lapu, or like maybe that's like now an institutional area. I'm not 100% sure. New housing identified over here near the Mandawi area. I think those are the red houses. Yeah. So the quality of the image is also not very good, even in the official document. So that's how bad our documentation has been like since the 90s. So that's another challenge. But I just want to highlight the components that have been implemented in the MACLUT study. So this is like 2000s, early 90s to 2000s. So the Mandawa City Reclamation Project was implemented. South Road Reclamation Project implemented. New roads built as a connector road from NJ Cuenco, etc., etc. So the major roads in the city. Construction of the second bridge, widening and improvement of arterial roads, construction of southern bus terminal, installation of modern traffic signal system, implementation of some traffic management measures, and development of Mactan tourism area. So that was accomplished in the early 90s up to the 2000s. Things that they wanted to do but were not implemented were the creation of the Metro Cebu Development Authority. So that was a big misstep, or not a misstep, but unfortunate event that there really is no Metro Cebu like group. I think we have, it's currently sort of functioning as a NGO, making waves. The people behind this, I'm not sure where they get their funding from. Is there any permanent staff? I think it's just rotating staff and people just working here out of their kind of goodwill. I think the people who made this are not being compensated, or if they're compensated, it's very low. Basically, it's just a donation, I think. I think in general, the people who did get paid are the Japan International Corporation Agency, because we asked their help. There's still the Mega Cebu group, but I don't know how they were active before the pandemic. I'm not updated on their situation now. I try to keep in touch with their organizers. Our former deans, the Espinas, are like a big part of this group. So if you know architect Joaquin Espina, his father and his uncle, former dean, both former deans, Maxwell Espina and Joseph Michael Espina, basically my mentors, are still in this group. And we're still discussing what to do during the pandemic. And I'm trying to contribute my own by making these like small projects. Very small projects at low cost. Basically, low cost, meaning I'm not getting paid for that, but I'm just trying to implement my own, like based on my learnings in Sydney and also in this class. I'm trying to implement it so that you guys have a sort of example of what's going on in the city. Another thing that was not implemented, the construction of other new roads along A Fortuna to South Road, extensions from H. Cortez Street, Abellana Street, Northern Ring Road, etc., etc. So you can take a look at this, and maybe over Christmas break, you can orient yourselves. So this will connect to our next module, I know, next course, AR3233, which is really urban design. And this is street level planning. So we'll take a look at street standards, why road widening is so difficult in Cebu City in particular. I don't know if it's easier everywhere else in the Philippines. Why I think transportation planning needs to do a paradigm shift, like just a change in perspective in general. And we'll talk about that. Oh, crap's already 6:30. I guess we'll just talk about that in AR3233 because we need to move on. Okay, four visions and strategies for the sustainable roadmap study for sustainable development in urban Cebu: competitiveness, mobility, livability, and metropolitan management. So these kinds of visions are very good if you keep it simple, like single word. We've seen these types of like goals in the national level. The idea is if we keep it simple, everyone can understand what we're trying to do. And over here, metropolitan competitiveness enhancement, urban structure and land use, urban transport and highway network, all of these are enhancement, solid waste management, smart SRP development, and metropolitan governance. So here is a bit more specific, but still vague. So need to improve that. And then over here, we have urban land. There's a section on urban land availability. This is from the summarized version. And I just want to focus, they didn't have a very high definition image. Over here, I'm just gonna highlight, this is a 2010 population distribution. So in yellow, it's kanang medium density, and blue, light density, and red, heavy density. So they're saying left unplanned, we will have a monocentric and densely inhabited urban society, which will be bad for traffic, etc., etc. And then their idea is polycentric and equitably developed urban society. So spreading out the density of what they call this, the population. So you see here in yellow, more yellow meaning medium density compared to more red, high density. This is where, based on my experience, I think it will be very difficult to spread out as evenly as they wish. Or in fact, I think it'll be impossible and not feasible. But that's just my opinion, and I need to like review this document further. And I'm still creating my own research to sort of like see whether we can actually do this and maybe contribute to the sustainable development of Metro Cebu. Because this is really my reason for coming back to the Philippines. Because I feel like I could do more here than in Australia when they have like everything, what do you call this, figured out already. We can explain further on why I think monocentric is not necessarily bad, but like it has to be managed. So there's a lot of it depends in urban planning, but we'll discuss that in AR3233. But this is the general what they call this, approach or direction that Cebu City is going. Your different provinces, for those who are not in Cebu province, who are in like let's say Luzon area and Mindanao area, you should have your local government or like some NGO, non-government organization should have some kind of plan for your area as well. And then if they don't, you can refer to the ones we mentioned earlier, like international sources that are doing studies in the Philippines just for our benefit. And then over here on the right side is the financing and the project management system of the Metro Cebu, what they call this, development committee. So the financing system, we have here getting donors from donations from JICA, or like getting sponsored by people from JICA and NEDA. And then also the Metro Cebu development, I keep forgetting what the C is, MCDCB, Metro Cebu Development CB. Coordinating board. So the other C is coordinating. So I think we can just simplify our acronyms not to have them so long. Metro Cebu Development Board. I don't know why they needed to add extra C, but that's just me kind of complaining. Anyway, so we get loans from the Department of crap. What's DOF? DOF, Department of Finance. We get loans from the Department of Finance. So how do we get loans? We present a project. Hopefully everything is there. So similar to what we do in architecture, where we present the whole design, initial design to the client, and then they say, okay, I'm happy with this. And then because we have the initial design, we can estimate how much it costs. We give them the price. They say okay or no. If no, we revise it to reach their desired cost and then send it again. So this time we're doing it on a larger scale, a whole department to approve a loan. Once the loan is transferred or approved, it gets transferred to DPB and LBP, so local banks, I think, and department banks, something like that. Transferred to MCDCB, the Metro Cebu Development Board, and goes to the RDC. I don't know what the RDC is. Passes through the NEDA, the Economic Development Agency, National Economic Development Agency. I think that's what it is. And then it goes back here and becomes like budgeted, and it becomes a approved for loan equity, and becomes a PMO, goes to a project management office. So they have to create a new office for that, whatever project that is. So each project will have its own management office. So within that budget, they need to not only budget the construction costs, the labor costs, but also the professional costs for those who are managing those projects. So this is why if you feel like, well, for me personally, I feel like a lot of the urban infrastructure in the Philippines is very weak, and I think a lot of foreigners also agree. It's because really we don't budget as well. So that's another thing that in the Philippines as a whole we can do better. And if we do have a budget, as we always have that problem with corruption. So the budget gets deducted. So we always have less than the desired amount. So our projects become less than what they're supposed to be. So monitoring and evaluation is really needs strengthening in the Philippines. And this also connects to our architectural projects. So we might have the best design, but if like our monitoring, we don't have the architects to monitor on site, we don't have like competent contractors, or our drawings, the worst case scenario is our drawings are not understandable. This really gets in the way of developing good projects. So that's why in our AR3100 class, we're always like, nitpick your drawings, your walls need to be clear, your windows need to be clear, columnation needs to be clear, areas and everything else should be following the design brief. So connecting your single buildings to like on the larger scale. So that kind of practice can be applied to the larger scale, and that really kind of highlights the importance of proper like draftsmanship, proper design, because that all goes back to like how much money we need to build that thing, and how do we construct that thing in real life. So better drawings lead to better understanding, which will hopefully mean like better buildings and development. And it's already 6:30. I didn't have a chance to discuss urban economics like I wanted, but in general, let's pull up a image here. Traffic management. Images, 7 images here. I'll just pull up this image over here, sort of like as a background for the, that's a really small image. So I'll just like quickly discuss some ideas that I think are important for road management, something that we need to like look away from. So in 1 minute, we need to drive slower. So I know that's a little bit confusing. I put up an article of how driving slower might actually increase overall traffic speeds. So basically, the idea is that the reason why congestion is so bad in the Philippines is that everyone wants to drive faster, and that makes them change lanes, overtake each other. And it's that act of changing lanes that actually cause traffic, and not the fact that the road is very small, although that is a part of it. A larger impact is people trying to overtake each other and trying to like fight over the lanes, when usually they should just, in like the more developed countries, people stay in their own lanes. And then the issue with increasing road widths and building new roads is that it's not a long-term solution for traffic congestion, because of a what do you call this, of a phenomenon called induced demand. So I'll just write it down here on screen. Note, uh, yeah, induced demands is over here. Demand. Basically, it says that the more of a thing you have, the more people will want it. So basically, we can't build ourselves out of traffic congestion. The only way to solve traffic congestion is to provide new modes of transportation, because building roads will only attract people to use more cars. And let me just open up. I don't have an image ready. But next time we'll look at, just think about how many people can fit in one car, whether it be a van, pickup, or like just a normal car. That's four people, and a car is about 2 meters long by like 1.5 meters wide, or maybe 1 meter wide. No, 1.5 meters wide. And you're taking up so much space on the road, and it's definitely not an efficient mode of travel. Whereas a bus is about the size of two cars, but fits over 3 times or like 10 times the number of people. So a bus can accommodate 40 people. So infinitely more efficient, infinitely more sustainable. And the bike is a lot smaller than the car. In the same bike lane, you can fit, I think about in the same area of one car, you can fit four bicycles, or maybe even like um, five bicycles, maybe something like that. So the idea is not to build more roads, but to increase options for transportation. So more people to walk, more people to cycle, less people to use the car, because the car was only efficient in the 1900s when our population wasn't so high. If everyone uses a car, no one is going to go anywhere. So that is basically what the let me bring up my desktop here. What we'll be discussing next sem. It's over here in the downloads. Da-da-da-da-da. That this graph basically says, if there are more cars on the road, the trip or the travel time increases, because all the cars are stuck together. And the only way to increase travel time is to reduce the number of cars on the road down to this number over here. And then, yeah, that's really the only way. Reduce the number of cars on the road. So make driving less attractive. And we'll discuss this one in a bit more detail next semester. So I really ran out of time for that. Next week on Monday, we'll be talking about site selection process and how we can apply all of these learnings to locate, what do you call this? To locate your building, basically. So this is preparation for your thesis and your AR3 3200 next sem. And although we don't have a activity that forces you to locate your own site, I think it will only be for your 5th year that you locate your own site and design your, like, identify the building type. But it's a good thing that we should practice that now. Okay. So our final exam will be on, let's see here. Yeah, we need to do that site location thing. So that will be due probably, we need to do one more drawing and one more exam. So one more drawing submission, that will be due probably just do it the same day as the exam. But I'm kind of worried. Okay, I'll stop recording here. So what do you guys prefer? Do you